Hi everyone, this is John Jacob Schmidt. We're excited about this year's nationwide grid down training exercise, T-Rex 2016. This year's exercise contains a unique element we haven't had in previous readiness exercises. As most of you know, federal government agencies, as well as the Canadian military, state agencies, county governments, and non-government agencies will be conducting a major disaster training exercise called Cascadia Rising. This is an earthquake-based exercise related to the Cascadia Subduction Zone, or CSZ, from Northern California to Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, and other Pacific Northwest states. That disaster training exercise will take place from Tuesday, June 7th through Friday, June 10th. The CSZ is a major earthquake-prone area that scientists are predicting at least a 9.0 earthquake at some point between now and the next 50 years. And they say we're overdue. Tsunamis, loss of government services, devastating damage to infrastructure, the risk to nuclear power plants, and human casualty rates are expected to reach catastrophic levels if and when the big one, as they put it, happens. Those fall into the primary or initial risk phase, the first hours and days. The secondary disaster they're planning for is the expected refugee crisis when tens or hundreds of thousands of disaster victims attempt to head eastward to find food, water, and safety. While we're grateful that the government is taking proactive steps to respond to such an emergency, we see this as an opportunity for citizens who want to help their communities also practice their own disaster preparedness plans. Amaron operators will use the over-the-air reports they receive by monitoring the Cascadia Rising exercise to generate situation reports that they can relay to their local networks, practicing passing and receiving emergency traffic and keeping their local communities and community leaders informed. This is realistic training in that with this scenario, we have no control over who sends what traffic and when. This will help Amaron operators become familiar with their area ARES and other emergency communications plans so they'll know where to go to get information in a real disaster. We understand this is specifically oriented toward the Pacific Northwest, but don't feel left out if you live in a different part of the country. We have something planned for the rest of you. Besides the Cascadia Subduction Zone, there is another equally earthquake-prone area right in the center of the United States. It's called the New Madrid Fault Line. Just as the CSZ is expected to be devastating when the plates shift, the New Madrid earthquake is said to have the potential to literally separate the continent. Scientists have indicated this, not us. In this scenario, we're not going to pretend the continent becomes divided and a new gulf created, but we are going to simulate that the CSZ earthquake somehow triggers another larger earthquake at the New Madrid fault line. The combination of these two earthquakes in this scenario will have a cascading effect, which will result in power outages in nearly every part of the country. Add to that the disruption in other infrastructure, such as communications, internet, transportation, and elements such as opportunistic criminal activity and hungry, scared, and desperate citizenry. I'm sure you could imagine what an interesting time it may be for a while in the United States and Canada. How to participate. First of all, this is your training exercise. You'll get out of it what you put into it, but real life is still going on. Some people have to work, some have weddings, graduations, and so on. But if you're able, we want to encourage you, your family, your preparedness network, your church, militia, like-minded neighbors, and your community to put your disaster preparedness plan to the test. We'll be announcing the prizes for this year's T-Rex the week of June 6th in a posting at Amaron.com. We're still working on some of those prizes, which is why we'll wait until then. I can tell you that we will be giving away gear, such as Life Straw water filters, communications gear, a couple of high-quality HF antennas built by experienced Amaron Core operators, as well as gear from the American Redoubt gear store, and much more. Keep checking back at Amaron.com for details. As we get closer, more updates will be added right up to the time the grid goes down. And no, we will not be streaming Amaron radio traffic over the internet during the exercise. After all, how could we do that if there's no internet? And besides, we wouldn't be doing you any favors if we did. Now, go get your comms up. Let me take you to the portions from the promo videos from previous T-Rexes 2014 and 2015. The information here is relevant for this year's exercise. And we know from history and experience that disaster can strike quickly and often with little or no warning. Whether the disaster is natural or man-made, shouldn't you be prepared to be self-reliant, even if only temporary? Some disasters have required days, weeks, or even months to recover from. Others are planning. Your own government tells you that you should have a week's worth of provisions to get you by until help can arrive, and is designed to provide a basic scenario as an excuse for you to implement the plan your family or your group has been planning around. For each of you, that might be different. Some of you already assessed that you'll need to get out of the city that you're in, and so your plan is oriented around bugging out. Some of you have nowhere to go, or you don't plan to. Maybe you've assessed that you already live in a suitable location for bugging in. In either case, this is a weekend training exercise to let you and your family or group assess your preparations and actually practice. Are you sure that that generator you're counting on works properly and dependably? When was the last time you dug that shortwave radio out and inspected the batteries? Is the radio you were planning on using to stay informed in good condition? And are you familiar with its features and how to operate or program it? Will your gear meet your expectations? You should already be planning for T-Rex, but if you haven't, I want to encourage you to join the families, preparedness groups, and church groups across the country to review your plan and discuss it with each other, and ask yourselves, if something happened, what would we do? Then develop or fine-tune your plan, get things in order, and then practice. You'll have a chance to flip the switch and turn the power off to your house and identify cooking, lighting, food preparation, and many other needs you may have never considered. Identify needs so you can make a plan to address those weaknesses after the exercise, especially water. Turn the main water off to your home. Remember, pumping water to your home uses electricity. What if water weren't available? Do you have the means of procuring, capturing, and purifying water? Have you actually prepared a meal from your long-term food storage? Some folks anticipate they'll have to bug out. Have you actually loaded up your vehicle with everything that you think you're going to take and then headed to your retreat or grandma's house? A couple people who work away from home will be practicing their getting home on foot plan during T-Rex. Have you mapped out your route? Have you walked it? Have you used your get home bag and actually lived out of it for a day and a night? Are there other micro scenarios you could create throughout the exercise to provide group or family training, or to simply make it more interesting? Take advantage of the training opportunity. One opportunity that T-Rex will provide is communications. A communications training exercise will be heavily integrated into the T-Rex weekend when Amron, Tapern, and other radio networks will be participating. The American Redoubt Radio Operators Network and many other networks and operators will be passing news, situation reports, known as SITREPs, welfare reports, and other reports and information throughout the weekend. Most all regional and national communications will be done following the frequency and time schedule laid out in the Communications SOI, which are Signals Operating Instructions for radio communications. For example, one operator, known as a station, might have a news report to put out. He would do that on HF, high frequency, also commonly known as shortwave radio. He could send the news report across the continent to other HF ham operators. In turn, those operators would share the news and information regionally to other ham operators. You don't have to be a ham operator to receive or listen to most of these communications, but you will need a shortwave radio with single sideband, also known as SSB. Your grandpa's old shortwave radio not having SSB will probably just lead to disappointment. Most all ham radio traffic is done using single sideband. If you're not a ham operator, you should already have a good quality shortwave radio with SSB, single sideband. for long-range communications across the country in your region. A scanner is a great way to receive local communications so that you can receive local emergency service communications, ham radio operator communications that are operating locally on VHF and UHF bands. When your ham operators and relays receive communications from outside of your community, they'll relay that based on a time and frequency schedule outlined in the SOI on FRS, Family Radio Service, MERS, that's Multi-Use Radio Service, and CB, or Citizens Band radios, on Channel 3. We call this the Channel 3 Project. They do this to keep you and your community informed. They'll be practicing this in their areas during T-Rex and any major national real-world disaster situation. If you don't have an HF ham operator in your area, you'll be out of the loop and won't be able to listen for news and information without a single sideband shortwave radio. Every family or group should have one, so if you don't have one, get one. This is a training exercise, so we want you to keep good notes. Keep a journal just for T-Rex. As for the communications, we want you to monitor the Amron nets for news, updates, and sit reps. Keep a log of radio traffic. This will help you build confidence in your skills and your equipment. It will also help you build situational awareness so you can practice paying attention to what's going on around you. This will help to develop and strengthen regional and local communications networks, and then pass on the news and information to others as you're able. Now, for all of our communications operators and anyone participating in T-Rex, remember this is a training exercise, and some of the information passed on the net could be disturbing to those who don't realize that there's a training exercise taking place. Some of these news reports could be very realistic and convincing, so it's very important that you always precede your message with exercise, exercise, exercise. This is a training exercise, and then you give the message or the news or whatever information is that you're passing. And then always follow up the end of your message with this quote: "This radio traffic is a training exercise for the T-Rex disaster readiness exercise." End of message. Now, as an incentive for folks to participate and take notes and pay attention and track the messages, we will be giving away some prizes. Now, how to enter. Some of the message will be accompanied by numbers and letters. They will have an alphanumeric message so that we can track those. For example, if you receive a message that says message number 2 Alpha, all commercial power, cell phones, and internet is out of service in a 100-mile radius of Cleveland, Ohio. So you make a note of 2A. Now, the A, Alpha, is the second letter, indicated by the number 2, in the contest word. Later on in the day, you may receive another message. Message number 5, Oscar, National Guard delivering fresh drinking water to your town to be distributed at the nearest high school football field tomorrow at noon. This is only an example of a message. But you know that O, Oscar, goes in the 5th place of that contest word. So throughout the weekend, you should be able to assemble the entire word, and then hopefully by the end of the exercise, you will have collected all of the message with alphanumeric tracking numbers, and you'll be able to assemble that together into a word. Now, the real word that we're using for the actual exercise, we won't tell you how many characters are in there. You'll just have to listen for those messages and use that information to try to assemble the contest word. And remember, always, whenever you are sending a message, always use the term exercise, exercise, exercise. This is a training exercise. If you think that you have the completed contest word for the exercise, email that after the event is over by noon on Sunday to johnjacob@radiofreeredoubt.com, and we'll be holding that drawing that evening on Radio Free Redoubt, the Sunday evening podcast, which starts at 8 p.m. Pacific time. For more information, go to radiofreeredoubt.com or amron.com to learn how you can get a copy of Signal's operating instructions, the SOI, if you do not already have that. And learn more about T-Rex, the exercise, by clicking on the banner that says Teotihuacan Readiness Exercise on the right side of the page, both on radiofreeredoubt.com and amron.com. This is John Jacob Schmidt. God bless all of you, and we look forward to training with you for T-Rex 2015.